I want to have a talk with you all about the importance of going to higher levels. Going to higher levels. It's time to rise and it's time to go to higher levels. I went live, I don't know, may have been a week or so ago, and I talked about this, but I don't think I recorded it as an actual podcast episode. So I want to talk about this again because this morning, this is what God really had in my heart. I want you all to turn over to John chapter 5. There's an amazing story in John chapter 5, and if you read from the NIV, the title is The Healing at the Pool. And what's so amazing about this, what really stands out to me about this, is the one question that Jesus asked this person who was sitting there, I think it was for about 38 years, waiting for someone to help him. Have you ever been in a situation, or you feel like as you look through your life, all of these years have gone by and you've kind of been in that same cycle, you know what I mean? Going around that same mountain, right? And so whenever I look at the Word of God, I always like to try to relate it to my everyday life. So this story's really been impressing upon my heart because as I see it, I think through, gosh, all these years he was sitting and having all these excuses and no one's able to help me in the pool and every time the water gets stirred, I don't have anyone to help. But I just think it's so fascinating that Jesus asked him this one question. So let's get to that. Let's read a little bit through it, and then let's talk about what was the importance of this question and what do we need to do. How can we apply this in our spiritual lives, of course, for personal development, even for professional or entrepreneur development? What is this saying to us? So take a moment to read this with me. And again, I'm going to read from the NIV really quickly. This is the healing at the pool. Starting in verse 1, it says, "Sometime later, Jesus went to Jerusalem for a feast of the Jews. Now there was in Jerusalem near the sheep gate a pool, which in Aramaic is called Bethesda, and which is surrounded by 5 covered colonnades. Here a great number of disabled people used to lie. The blind, the lame, the paralyzed. One who was there had been an invalid for 38 years. When Jesus saw him lying there and learned that he had been in this condition for a long time, he asked him, 'Do you want to get well?' We're going to come back to that in a minute. 'Sir,' the invalid replied, 'I have no one to help me into the pool when the water is stirred. While I'm trying to get in, someone else goes down ahead of me.' Then Jesus said to him, 'Get up, pick up your mat and walk.' At once the man who was cured, he picked up his mat and walked." And then it goes on to talk about some other things. But I just want to focus just on this first part. Just on this first part, because it's so good. If you can see my Bible, I don't know if you can actually see it. There's so many notes in it and things I've referenced and went back to. The King James Version, he doesn't say get up. In the King James Version, he says rise. He says take up thy bed, right? And then in the King James Version, instead of saying at once the man was cured, the King James Version says immediately the man was made whole. So there's just so much to pull from that. It's just not even funny. I even looked up the definition of bed, looked up the definition of what is a mat. Like I went pretty deep into it because I really wanted to soak into what is being revealed behind this story. So let's break this down really, really, really quickly. So when we think about the man that's been at the pool for all these years, I think the mystery in this scripture, at least this is how it applies to my life, is I think through what has been limiting me and holding me back all these years in my life. What is the area? I want you all to think about this too. What is one area in your life where you feel you've gone around and around the same mountain, right? And I'm referring to the passage that talks about how you've traveled around this mountain long enough. But what is one area in your life where you feel like, why am I not rising? Why does it seem as if I'm constantly going in a circle, or I'm being stagnant, I'm being still, right? And I've been waiting for this moment to happen, or this breakthrough to happen in my life. Or maybe at times the breakthrough happened, but it just was short-lived, and you always find yourself back to that same mat. So just so you all know, that's kind of the mindset that I'm thinking right now, is that what is the same mat, the same mindset even, the same conditioning in my thinking that I've been stuck in, and I unknowingly was using excuses, whether it's I don't have the support, or I don't have enough money to do this, or I've tried so many times. You guys know how that goes, right? Tried so many times. And if any of you are inside of the necessary retreat, you know we talk about the difference between the subconscious and the conscious mind, right? And now the conscious mind, that's the mind that tells all the stories. So it's going to keep telling you of all the things that happened in the past that didn't go well. Even though you may get up today and feel like I'm ready to run and take over the world, that subconscious mind is going to come right on back with those same stories. But this has been your history. It always starts off good like this, right? You always start off saying this and that, and then it ends up right back here again. What makes you think it's going to work this time? But that's another subject. I don't want to get into that. That's just some of the things that we talk about inside of the necessary retreats. Let me go back to what I'm talking about here. What is that area in your life, whether it's been 38 years or 38 months or even 38 minutes, to be quite honest with you, where you've been stuck and you've allowed whatever excuses to be what limits you and keeps you from getting up and moving forward? So that's how I'm looking at this passage. Now, here's the question that Jesus asked him, and I just can't get this question out of my mind, because if somebody's been sitting in a condition for all this time, why would you ask them, and I'm in verse 6, do you want to get well? Doesn't that seem a little odd to you? Or you know, I don't know, maybe it's just me. You guys know I'm a little weird, because when I look at the passages, I can't explain it, but it's as if the scriptures, or it's as if something revealed behind the scriptures pops up off the page to me, almost like in 3D. And so I keep coming back to this of, why is he asking him, do you want to get well? Like, if you've been sitting in that situation for a long time, I'm sure the guy was, I don't know, praying, right? Crying out to God, something, right? Why don't you think it's almost like a little rude to be like, well, do you want to get well? It's almost like the answer is, well, duh, yeah. You think I like being in this condition? You think I like my circumstances and these same repeated results? You think I like this? So I just find it so interesting. Let me deviate a second, because you guys know I'll deviate and come back. If you ever get the time to just read through the New Testament, and especially if you have a Bible that's like mine, where it's a red letter edition, the red letters are all the words that Jesus actually spoke. Just spend your time just literally going through and reading everything that's in red, everything that he spoke, and just meditate and think about the very words that he spoke, because everything that he spoke is almost as if there's a mystery behind it as well. And so when I sit on this verse, because I can't get it out of my spirit and out of my head, I think through, why would you ask this man, does he want to get well? Why not just heal him? Why would you ask him the question? And it's almost as if we have to be honest with ourselves when we look at our situation that we've been in for so many years, right? We look at, in many cases, a cage mindset. I don't have my book Necessary in front of me, but you all know that's one of the chapters in my book Necessary, called Cage Mindset. But when you look at it, it's almost as if God is saying to us, I'm able to do any and all things, but do you want to get well? Are you willing to change? Are you willing to change your perception in the way you see me and the way you see what's possible in your life? Are you willing to put in the effort and get up and do what needs to be done? Do you like being in this uncomfortable, familiar territory? Are you actually really ready to do something about it? Or are you very comfortable and this is just you sitting and complaining about it? Now, I know all of that wasn't in the passage. I'm just saying this is how it kind of reads to me. It can read to you however it wants, but that's how it reads to me. That otherwise, why ask the question? Why ask the question, do you want to get well? Why? Reminds me when my kids was first starting to ride a bike and, kept falling down, and one or two times they're in the street crying and whatever's like, do you want to learn how to ride the bike? Yeah, I want to. Okay, well, get up. Let's get back on it. I know that's a bad example, but you get my point. Anyway, let's go on from there. So he said, do you want to get well? My God, I could just sit on that like for 3 days to be. Actually, I've been sitting on this scripture for weeks, not even just 3 days. Now look at the response to the guy. This is just so good, you guys. Sir, the invalid replied, I have no one to help me get into the pool when the water is stirred. Now, you all can read and research later about this pool, but they believe back in that day, whenever the water is stirred, whoever's the first to get in it can be healed. I don't know much about that background. I'm sure some of you all who are ministers who are listening or watching can explain that a little bit more. But that was the premise of it, which is why they were there. And so he's saying, Sir, I have no one to help me get into the pool when the water is stirred. Do you notice how he didn't answer the question? Do you want to get healed? And then it's almost like, well, but I tried several times and it didn't work. Do you want to get healed? Well, I really don't have the support and people believing in me to think that it can get done. Do you want to get healed? Well, I don't have that, the education. Do you want to get healed? Well, this is how I grew up in my background, and you get my point. Do you want to get healed? Well, I just love people, and it's hard for me to have healthy boundaries in my life because I love taking care of everybody. And I don't want, people, getting upset with me. Do you want to get healed? Well, I'm sort of afraid of walking out there, in my dreams and doing what I got to do. Do you want to get healed? Well, yeah, I do want to go higher, but I don't want people thinking. You get my point? You get my point? Jesus asked him, do you want to get healed? And you guys, the man didn't even answer the question. He went on to talk about, because he was stuck, right? Talk about this quite a bit inside of the Necessary Retreat, inside of some of the mentorship programs that I run for personal and entrepreneur development. But it's that mindset. I mean, you talk about being stuck. He was literally stuck. And all he can see was the problems and the circumstances in front of him. Now, let me just be very honest with you all, because I don't sit here to proclaim like I know it all. I get stuck sometimes. Right? Sometimes you don't even know you're stuck. Sometimes you don't even know what you don't know, because all you see is your little world right there in front of you. And that's why I love, and I've referenced Gideon so much. If you have time to read Judges 6 and 7, it's one of my favorite passages in the Bible. I really believe the story of Gideon is more than just a story. It's a realm. It's a spiritual realm that you walk in. I believe it's a mindset. Like, there's so much more about that story than just the story itself. I have chills as I just said those words, to be honest with you. But the story of Gideon it's a realm. It's stepping into a higher, because Gideon saw himself as the least. He's like, if God was with us, then why is all these things happening to us? Like, how can you say God is for us when, all of these bad things have happened, right? My tribe is the least, and he's just, that's what he saw. That was the realm that he was in. Oh my goodness. But then that angel showed up and called him a mighty warrior. And I'm sure, like many of us, listen, I'm always transparent with you all. God has taken me to a higher level. And do you know how much time I've been sitting lately? I'm being very transparent with you. How much time I've been sitting lately just to get that vision of, God, is this really what you're calling me to do? This is scary. Am I really that person, God? Can you show me a vision again? I'm trying to see it. And I believe you've given me the talents and the gifts. And okay, I'll take another step with you, God. But you see what I'm saying? That's kind of where Gideon was at. And that angel showed up and called him a mighty warrior. Now, I digress. Let me get back to this. Jesus asked him, do you want to get well? He's given all the reasons why he's not got that. I can't say not gotten, but you get my point. All the reasons why it didn't happen. Why over? Can you imagine 38 years? And I really believe the way that this story is told, this is just my opinion. I believe the 38 years really represents just whatever it means for different people. It means a long doggone time. Like a ridiculous amount of time of having the same results and not being able to shift out of that realm, not being able to go higher, just stuck, right? Let's keep going. What I love is Jesus says, get up, pick up your mat and walk. You guys, this is I wish it was like a movie where we can just sit and watch this. This is in real time. He didn't even address the excuses and the issues. He didn't even address it. He didn't say, well, how many times did you ask somebody to help you? Well, how close did you get to the pool before you got in there? Right? Well, let's get a plan together so that, the next time the water is stirred. You see what I'm saying? He didn't even, You guys see how powerful do you see what Jesus is showing us? If we're made in the image of God, go back and read Genesis chapter 1. You can start in verse 1, but definitely go and read verse 26 or so. But if we're made in his image, and if we truly believe in Romans 8, I believe it's verse 15 or verse 17 or so that talks about we're heirs of God, we're co-heirs with Christ. If we truly believe in that, do you understand what he's saying is that pick up your mat and walk? He didn't even look at all of the issues that we would look at that holds us back. He didn't even look at it. I get you've been trying and this didn't work and that that website didn't quite go up how you wanted, or your program didn't go how you wanted this to go, or wow, you really don't have support, with your spouse, in this, or man, the responsibility. He didn't even, and I don't think it's because he didn't care. I think it was because he was shaping his perception. Take your focus from looking down and look up. In the name of Jesus, Yeshua, look up. So he told him, he said, this is so good. Get up. Now the King James Version says, rise. My God. He says, pick up your mat and walk. King James Version says, take up thy bed. Now I marinated on that a little bit this morning. Why would he tell him to pick up the mat and walk? Why not just get up and walk? Why do I need to pick the mat up? So I don't need to go back to it? I'm folding that up. I don't need it anymore. I don't want it still there to come and lay back down on. I'm done with that. I need to get rid of this mindset. I need to shift. I need to walk forward. Then I looked up, because you guys know I'm weird. I looked up when it comes to the scriptures, I just go deep in it. I looked up what is the definition of a bed. And the definition of a bed is a piece of furniture for sleep or rest. And it's almost like, no, you've been sleeping and resting in this for way too long. No. Pick it up. Wake up. Wake up. Get up. Then I looked at what is the definition of a mat. A mat is a piece of coarse material placed on a floor for people to wipe their feet on, or for people to lay on. That's when you're laying down, you're being stagnant, there's no movement. Sleeping. Life's passing you by. Now, there's nothing wrong with actually taking time to rest, but you guys follow what I'm saying, right? But the purpose of the mat is people to wipe their feet on, or in some cases for you to lay on, right? Whole purpose of the bed is sleeping, is resting, right? No movement, no rising. You're just there. And it's so interesting that he didn't just say get up and walk. It's almost like fold up that bed, get rid of that mindset. Stop sleeping. Stop letting life pass you by. Stop letting life tell you what is delivering to you, and you stand and walk in the dominion and the power and in the authority over the assignment I gave you. Get up and walk. I'm going to close this out because I don't know if you guys picking up what I'm laying down, but this is just so good. And I'll end with verse 9. At once the man was cured. He picked up his mat and walked. King James Version says immediately. I think it says the man was made whole. I love the King James Version. Immediately he was made whole. Because there's times in life, you all, where I felt like, God, I'm broken. I feel broken. Like I know what I need to do, but I'm a little scared. My past circumstances have shown me that it's short-lived or it won't work. And I'm just tired. Have you ever just been tired? Like it's not that I'm just tired, right? Right? There's times you just feel broken. And I love the King James Version that says at once, it said, and I just wrote it down here. It says, immediately the man was made whole. What do you mean he was made whole? What do you mean he was made whole? Wasn't he whole before? He was made whole. It's almost as if Romans 12:2, which is one of my favorite passages, being transformed by the renewing of your mind. He was fixed. He was made whole. He was seeing clearly, right? I pray this short podcast episode has encouraged you all. I want to challenge you. First question. Do you want to get well? And I'm saying this with such love. Been asking myself that question too. Do you want to get well? Are you sick and tired of being sick and tired? Is enough enough? Have you traveled around this mountain enough? Because for some of you probably haven't traveled around the mountain enough. You haven't gotten sick and tired of it enough, which is, I'm just speaking for myself, which is why the familiar territory, even though we don't like it, is very comfortable. It's really not comfortable, but you're so used to it. It's like, okay, well, I guess stay on the mat if you want another 30 some years. And, if you stay that long, I guess, right? So the first question you really have to ask yourself, do you really want to get well? And the second question to that is, are you willing to pick up your mat and walk? Of course, we got to go to God in prayer and all of that. Of course, you guys already know how important it is to me. And I've said this many times, you seek out mentorship, coaching, right? For personal development, entrepreneur development. Get yourself into the right crowd, the right community, the right group, right? Don't give up meeting together, as many are in the habit of doing, but encourage each other one or more as you see the day approaching. So all of that comes in that whole gamut. I'm just trying not to go off on that, in that area right now, right? I do strongly believe in getting help that you need, but do you want to get well, and are you willing to pick up your mat? Are you really willing to fold up that old mindset, right? Get rid of all of those excuses and say, you know what? With God by my side, I can do anything. And yes, I may need to reach out to someone for mentorship, for help, get myself into a good community, and you're more than welcome to join the necessary retreat. In fact, I challenge you to join it, right? But are you willing to get the help that you need, right? Help first and foremost from God, working on that mindset, getting the help that you need. But are you willing to pick up your mat and walk? And what's beautiful about this is Jesus never told him it couldn't be done. He asked him, was he ready for it? Did he want it? So I pray that you all are encouraged. Do you want to get well? And are you willing to pick up your mat and walk? I love you all. You're listening to Unlocking Greatness Podcast with Zenja Glass.